Good morning on this busy weekend where we have a new president and we have people in the streets, and but it's also a winter weekend where it's gray and cold, and we're tempted to roll over and stay in bed, at least until the cat gets on us at 5:45, which is how my day started. And I got up and started the coffee, and um, it was time to wonder, gee, shall I go to church? And with the events of the weekend, I thought, yeah, this is a good time to go. When I poke the kids on a Sunday morning, I often get the why do we have to go? On a very basic human social level, we go because there are people there we know and who we love and who we would miss. And likewise, there are people there who know us and love us and will miss us. So, again, on a social level, we go to have a cup of coffee, shake a hand, ask how it's going, trade news. And that's good enough for them. They're not yet on their spiritual quests. And it's reason enough for them. And so they're usually happy by the time they get home. Yeah, that was good. For those who have been questing and are continuing to quest, there's a deeper reason. It's not just the love of our second family at church, it's the quest for divine love. And that can be a lifelong quest, as it has been for me. I've always heard and paid attention to that still small voice, which since childhood I've seen or heard, as T.S. Eliot says, heard, half heard, like a voice spoken between two waves. What was that? Or I've seen in the beauty of the world, mountaintops, oceans. We are called, I am called, to seek it in the world about me. And so I go, as I have. I took that obligatory comparative religion course, and I looked here and I looked there. But I always came back to the attractive Jesus, the notion of a Christ, a Messiah. But the dry page was not enough of an old book. I knew I had to go to church, scary as that was, as a young adult. And it took me weeks to step across a threshold. There were weeks where I turned back, but once I crossed, I remember nothing else about that first time except at the peace, which at its worst is an empty gesture, holding out a hand, saying to a neighbor, peace. I remember a guy, a big, burly guy, who was not interested in a handshake, but totally took me in an embrace and said, may the peace of the Lord be with you. And it was. I dropped everything I was carrying, pretense and self-security, and I was open to divine love in word and sacrament. And it has been thus ever since. I go back. It doesn't matter where I am. I can pick up, remember the phone books, remember those? And find a church, someplace where I can go and hear those same words, participate in those same sacraments. Eliot talks about that journey during his day when England was being bombed and London was nearly wiped off the map. I won't say our times are as insecure or as terrifying, but they are uncertain. This is from his Little Gidding, from the Four Quartets. If you came this way, and here I enlarge, if you came this way to a church, this church, taking any route, starting from anywhere, but from where you are, it's the only place you can start, at any time or at any season, and this season's as good as any, it would always be the same. You will have to put off sense and notion to get across that threshold. You are not going to verify, instruct yourself, or inform curiosity, or carry report back home. You are coming just to kneel, where prayer has always been valid. And prayer is more than words, the conscious occupation of a busy mind or the sound of the voice praying. And what the dead had not speech for when living, they can tell you, being dead, for they are above time. And the communication of the dead is tongued with fire, with power, beyond the language of the living. So going to church is where I go to hear those words of power, to just kneel and to be quiet, even as I speak words, which have more power than their meaning. And I am informed. I remember that I am putting myself in God's path, in God's way, that He might stop and give us a blessing of presence. To come to a place where prayer isn't made just for a day, but for generations, for millennia, where it has been done and made by people wiser than I, more faith-filled than I, to be surrounded by that great cloud of witnesses through times more difficult than these, to allow myself to be embraced by my neighbor and by my God, which is to say that we can drop who we think we are, the wisdom which we think we have, and just allow ourselves to be loved and to be strengthened for the days to come. I don't know, but that seems to me to be worth the trip.